Good evening. Welcome to the Press Club with me, Kendall Burton, and my co-host Earl Buske, where we review the big stories making news every week, locally, regionally, and internationally. As per usual, we start with a review of the local newspaper headlines. The Mirror newspaper, an exciting end to Science Fair. SMC students exhibit Sargassum Seaweed Project, Lucilex Solar Farm. The Voice newspaper, outgoing Commissioner Alexander says police force is now better. The Star newspaper, has promised Diabetes Research Center gone up in smoke, Jafali fallout, and what is Pierre's beef with Guyanese? Also, we have Mr. Buske's favorite inserts from the Star newspaper, the Tonight magazine, the entertainment component of that paper, as well as the sports and health insert, which is today's being the last edition of this particular insert, obviously because of production issues according to the Star newspaper, but I think it highlights the point that the media houses, like any other business, have issues, struggles, are subject to the same vagaries as other businesses in this negotiating this environment, this economic environment. But in terms of stories that stuck out in your mind this week, what got your attention? We had the Obama visit.
Actually, well, there's the longevity of the Jufali and impacts reports. I find the concentration on Philip Pierre's reference to Guyanese is a non-story. If we're talking about you know, dealing with serious issues, then why you want to keep highlighting an issue not considered to be serious? The Voice front page, police force is now better. I thought it was a statement of fact following an investigation, but it is the outgoing acting commissioner.
Patting himself on the back.
Well, you know, he pointed out that he feels he's done a good job and left the force in a better position than he met it. In fact, my actual two stories, big stories this weekend, have to do with the front page of the Mirror. An exciting end to the science fair. SMC students exhibit Sargassum Seaweed Project. I say so alongside with the fact that the annual National Science Fair, which is one of my pet peeves, it was this year in the Derek Walcott Square. It was there for quite a few days. I'm not sure to what extent people went, but those who saw actually called the talk shows and wrote about it. And that, I think, is a story. It's a continuous story. Lucilex Solar Farm, 36 companies express interest in constructing Lucilex Solar Farm. That too, I think, is a story, although it might be a press release, but certainly in terms of what it represents for St. Lucia's efforts towards being able to provide renewable energy and to shift our energy focus. So, of course, I doubt that the spelling of solar. Yeah, is right there, but perhaps the economic constraints that resulted in the Star doing away with the Sports and Health magazine and leaving my friend Dave Pascal in tears. Maybe for the same reason the Mirror doesn't have a proofreader. But that being said, the Voice editorial this weekend,
also focusing on the Jafali.
Also focusing on Jafali. There's a strange and not so often commonality between the positions adopted by the Voice editorial and the article written by Rick Wayne in the Star, from the standpoint that in both cases they are basically saying, all right, the government has won the argument about what it said from early on, that it would be establishing a dangerous precedent, but, and in each case there's always a but. In the case of the precedent, it's saying, well, but that was never the Jufali's diplomatic immunity was never the point. The Voice has a similar position, that the government has come out of the appeal case looking good, but it hasn't told us all about the Jufali affair. So the goalpost keeps shifting insofar as what people want, what those who accuse the government of, or the Prime Minister, in fact, of not saying anything about the Jufali, what more do they want? In fact,
I don't think the goalpost has shifted
there's
at all.
A part,
Go ahead.
There's a part in the Voice editorial, it says, where it says, it is obvious, and this is being stated as fact, it is obvious that the St. Lucia government thought it would be helping Jufali in his divorce by appointing him as St. Lucia's IMO representative.
Yeah, I had an issue with that as well.
Yeah, you know, how can...
It suggests,
the government of St. Lucia said from day one in its very first statement that it's not interested in the divorce case.
Yeah, but the divorce case aside, it suggests that the government somehow was aware that he was going for a divorce and that he got this or obtained this diplomatic immunity
and that the government of St. Lucia colluded with him to deny his wife the possibility. Yet both articles and both articles in each paper make reference to Article 31 of the Vienna Convention, which the government and everybody else who have been looking at it with clear eyes have been able to say that the man's diplomatic immunity did not apply. So how could everybody know that his diplomatic immunity did not apply and he didn't know, or his lawyer didn't know? And the fact is that, quite apart from the loud voices of criticism from the same quarters every week and every day, there are St. Lucians who tell you they feel proud that as a small country, St. Lucia stood up for principle and said it would not establish a precedent that would have, put every diplomat from every other country in the world in the jeopardy of their appointment being reversed by a court. And now again you're hearing the argument is, but a precedent has been set because for the first time a divorcee seeking to get more money from her husband has used diplomatic immunity.
Yeah, but I think that has more to do with diplomacy generally, and it goes way beyond the borders of St. Lucia in terms of abuses of diplomatic positions, and it needs to be Article 31 of the Vienna Convention obviously needs to be reviewed in light of similar abuses,
and that's not going to happen.
But that's beyond St. Lucia.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen because
it's also an indictment on the Voices
for any convention of the United Nations to be renewed or amended, it has to have the unanimous support of the majority of members of the United Nations. And it simply means that St. Lucia has stood up in defense of the international diplomatic community, and that has been verified by no less than the Foreign Minister of Britain, the Home Secretary, the Foreign and Commonwealth Secretary, Philip Hammond, who made his submission to the court and said St. Lucia was absolutely right. It's craziness for the judge to have ruled that a court can erase an agreement between two independent countries.
But that apart, on a side, it does not remove, I think, from the responsibility from the government to answer the questions that are being asked in the Star newspaper, in the Voice editorial, and in several talk shows about explaining how it is that we got into this relationship with Jufali. And more specifically, the headline on the Star now, that considering Jufali's current medical situation, where does that leave St. Lucia as far as the Promise Diabetes Research Center?
Okay, the Voice editorial...
We do for a break, so let's take the break, and when we come back, we can tackle that. All right, you're watching The Press Club. We'll be right back.